Ukraine's drone operation over Crimea forced repeated Russian intercepts before one UAV hit a key fuel site, disrupting operations.
8:15 a.m. Crimea. 6 Ukrainian drones lifted from Can, climbing toward a Russian oil storage site on the peninsula. The Ukrainians expected detection immediately because a nearby Zoopark radar positioned opposite the coast would see them the moment they rose. That was not a risk. That was the opening move. The first Russian counter-battery system sat 18 kilometers from the launch area. Detection came before the drones cleared 50 meters of altitude. 6 heat contacts rising from Ukrainian territory lit up the command post. The operator watched his screen populate with clean, confident data. Initial velocity, 180 meters per second. Climb angle, 45 degrees. Acceleration, consistent with rocket motors. Zoopark only needed 3 position fixes, 3 separate measurements in 3D space to calculate a ballistic path. First ping at 100 meters gave location. Second at 300 meters gave velocity. Third at 500 meters gave trajectory. The same math that predicts artillery impacts had worked for decades. Projectile goes up, projectile comes down. Physics does not lie, but drones can. The computer ran the calculation and displayed the answer. 6 HIMARS-style rockets inbound toward grid squares around Chaplinka. Impact in 47 seconds. The profile matched the database. Steep climb, specific velocity. 6 near-simultaneous launches, consistent with M31 class strikes. The drones had perfectly mimicked the launch signature of America's most feared precision artillery. The operator's pulse jumped as he grabbed the encrypted phone. HIMARS strikes meant ammunition dumps, command posts, fuel depots, targets that do not get a second warning. Alerts went out across 6 command nets while a countdown timer ran on the screen. 40 seconds, 30, 20, 10, 0, then nothing. The operator stared as 6 tracks simply ended mid-flight, 8 kilometers south of launch. Zoopark kept painting empty sky, searching for targets that were no longer there. And then the realization hit. The contacts had dropped below his radar horizon, into the layer where terrain, curvature, and sea clutter turned certainty into silence. These were not ballistic rockets obeying Newton. They were thinking machines, using the radar's assumptions against it. He switched from ballistic to cruise tracking, expanding his search for targets that fly level and change direction. Last known position, 8 kilometers south of the launch site, heading 230 degrees magnetic. Speed after the dive, roughly 150 kilometers per hour. In the time he spent waiting for impacts that never came, the drones had already pushed outward, low, quiet, and committed. When maritime radar finally picked them up, it was late in the only way that matters. The drones were already skimming the waves, riding the clutter, and closing in as 6 separate contacts that looked small on the screen and enormous in consequence. 8:23 a.m. Crimea. The handoff happened exactly as Doctrine intended. Zoopark lost the tracks, but coastal maritime radar acquired them less than 30 seconds later. 6 low-speed contacts reappeared at 20-25 meters above the surface, riding the clutter band where waves, spray, and curvature compress detection range and shorten reaction time. The system did not hesitate. The contacts were flagged as probable UAVs, hostile intent assessed at 60%. That was enough. The alert moved upward through the network, from coastal sensors to regional air defense command. Track data flowed inland. An S-400 battery positioned 32 kilometers from the coastline received the picture and began correlation. The targets were slow, well below cruise missile profiles, but numerous enough to demand engagement. The engagement window opened. At 24 kilometers, the first fire solution stabilized. Parameters aligned. Track confidence crossed threshold. The battery commander did not pause. This was a textbook scenario. Low-speed aerial threats approaching protected infrastructure. There was no ambiguity in the manual. The system did exactly what it was designed to do. 2 launchers elevated, 2 missiles armed. Target priority assigned. At 8:30 a.m., the first interceptor left the rail. A clean launch. Radar lock held through ascent and mid-course correction. The missile detonated at altitude. 1 drone vanished from the screen. Intercept confirmed. Confidence surged across the command post. A second missile followed 9 seconds later. Another clean intercept. Another contact erased. Operators exchanged brief confirmations, no raised voices, no hesitation. The system was performing within expected parameters. The threat appeared controlled, but the picture was already degrading. Each launch imposed a cost. Every missile fired forced a reset cycle. Radar focus narrowed to support the intercept, then widened again to rebuild situational awareness. Track quality dipped, then recovered, never quite returning to its original clarity. The remaining 4 drones did not make dramatic moves. They did not scatter or accelerate. They adjusted course in increments small enough to resemble environmental drift, wind, surface interference, minor navigation correction. But the timing was deliberate. Each adjustment landed between radar refresh intervals, exploiting the moment when the system was still reconstructing its picture. At 18 kilometers, the battery fired again. A 3rd drone was destroyed. The intercept geometry was tighter now. Less margin, more correction. The solution required more processing time, more refinement, more attention. Still, everything looked correct. Doctrine rewarded discipline. Discipline rewarded confidence. What the operators did not see was how much time they were spending. Every intercept consumed seconds. Every second mattered. Each solution forced the system to start again from imperfect data. And the drones were not rushing to close the distance. They were pacing the defense, letting it work, letting it burn time. At 14 kilometers, the radar showed a momentary quiet. Only 3 contacts remained. The commander allowed himself a breath. The pattern suggested the engagement was concluding. The worst appeared to be over. Intercepts had been successful. The defense was holding. Then a new track appeared. Low, late, weaker return. It entered the battle space 40 seconds after the last intercept, sliding beneath the engagement envelope already established. The radar tagged it, but the confidence value lagged. Track quality was still stabilizing, still recovering from the previous launch cycle. The battery fired anyway. The missile chased the contact, but the distance had collapsed too quickly. The intercept detonated behind the target. Close, too close. No confirmation, no disappearance. The track remained. The drone kept moving. And for the first time since 0502, the screen displayed something the Doctrine did not account for. A threat still advancing after the defense had done everything right. Ahead of it, the coastline grew larger, and the clock was no longer on the defender's side. 8:41 a.m., Crimea coastline. By the time the surviving drones crossed 12 kilometers, the nature of the engagement had changed. This was no longer an interception problem. It was a compression problem. The air defense network was still active. Radars were still rotating. Launchers were still loaded. On paper, Russia retained overwhelming superiority. But the system was now operating inside a shrinking bubble of time, geometry, and trust. The drones knew this. They did not accelerate. They did not scatter. They did not climb. They stayed low, riding 15-20 meters above the surface, where sea clutter blurred returns, and every wave crest briefly erased certainty. From the radar's perspective, each contact flickered between signal and noise, enough to track, not enough to predict cleanly. At 10 kilometers, command authority shifted again. A Su-30 was vectored toward the contact cluster, launched under strict emissions control. No radar, no data link chatter. IFF disabled to avoid revealing position to Ukrainian sensors. The fighter's role was simple: visual identification and confirmation. The decision made sense. It was also the most dangerous choice available. As the Su-30 descended toward the engagement zone, it entered the same uncertainty field as the drones. From above, it saw nothing immediately, only haze, surface glare, and the faint suggestion of movement below. The pilot reported intermittent visuals, uncertain classification. At the same time, ground-based radar saw something else. A fast-moving contact appeared at the edge of the picture. Clean geometry, high closure rate, no IFF response. The system did not see a pilot. It saw probability. To the S-400 battery, the contact was a high-speed aerial object converging on an active threat axis during an ongoing drone attack. The model did not assign intent. It assigned risk. Doctrine was clear. If a target cannot prove it is friendly and it matches hostile geometry, it is hostile. The fire control solution formed in seconds. The operator hesitated just long enough to verify the data. There was no contradictory input. No confirmation channel remained intact. The command net was saturated with alerts, resets, and conflicting tracks. At 8:45 a.m., the battery fired. A 48N6 DM missile left the rail, accelerating past 2,000 meters per second, guided by a system that had already committed. There was no recall, no override, no second chance. The missile impacted less than 20 seconds later. The Su-30 vanished from the picture. For a moment, the entire network froze. This was not a loss caused by enemy fire. This was not a failure of hardware. This was the system enforcing its own logic without context. Silence followed, then confusion. Command channels erupted, queries stacked, responsibility fragmented. Operators stopped trusting automated classifications and began second-guessing every track. Some radars were placed into manual confirmation modes. Others were briefly powered down to prevent further misidentification. In those moments, the air defense network was still armed but no longer synchronized. The drones kept coming. Now, at 7 kilometers, the remaining UAVs separated vertically by only a few meters, enough to complicate elevation tracking, but not enough to appear as distinct formations. One drone climbed slightly, just long enough to pull attention upward. Another stayed flat, almost invisible against the sea. At 6 kilometers, a Pantsir S-1 battery took over. This was its environment: short range, fast reaction, combined missile and gun coverage. The operators switched targets and engaged immediately. Missiles launched. One drone disintegrated. A second was damaged and lost control, slamming into the water short of the coast. The Pantsir's fire control screen cleared briefly. Then the last drone appeared. It did not enter along the same line. It did not follow the same timing. It arrived late 30 seconds behind the others when the system was already resetting from the previous engagements. Track quality lagged. Gun elevation adjusted too slowly. The missile queue had not fully recovered. The operator fired anyway. The missile passed close. Too close. The proximity fuse triggered late. The drone lost altitude but did not break apart. It stabilized just enough to continue. At 3 kilometers, there was no longer an interception problem to solve. There was only impact. The drone dropped lower, almost touching the surface, and accelerated straight toward its programmed aim point. No evasive maneuvers, no corrections, just commitment. The air defense network, once layered and redundant, had collapsed into isolated decisions happening seconds apart, each technically correct, collectively fatal. The drone crossed the shoreline. Behind it, the screen still showed activity radars spinning, operators issuing commands, but the decisive moment had already passed. What remained was consequence. 8:47 a.m. hours, coastal infrastructure zone, Crimea. The final phase unfolded without drama. That was the most dangerous part. After the loss of the Su-30, the air defense network was still alive, but it was no longer one system. Radars were running, batteries were armed, operators were still calling tracks and issuing commands. Yet the network had fractured into isolated nodes, each unit now fighting the war it could see, not the war that was happening. The surviving drone crossed the shoreline at less than 20 meters altitude. At that height, detection range collapsed into seconds. There was no longer time to build a clean solution, only time to react. The air defense problem had shrunk from kilometers to meters, from calculated geometry to raw timing. A nearby Pantsir unit attempted to re-engage, but its sensors were still recovering from the previous intercept cycle. The target flickered between confirmed and uncertain, just long enough to delay a stable lock. That delay was decisive. The drone did not weave. It did not jink. It did not search. It flew straight. Ahead lay the aviation fuel storage area that supported operations across the peninsula. Large, exposed tanks, fixed infrastructure, no redundancy. The kind of target air defense is meant to protect, not chase. The kind of place that cannot simply move when threatened. The Pantsir tracked again. The screen tried to hold the contact. The operator fought for clarity in a cluttered layer of air where spray, heat shimmer, and ground reflection distort everything. A firing window existed, but it was narrow and constantly slipping. Every second spent stabilizing the track was a second the drone used to close distance. At 1.5 kilometers, perimeter teams opened small arms fire. Tracers cut the air, bright lines reaching for a target that refused to rise into a clean shot. But the drone was too low, too fast, and too close. Engaging more aggressively carried its own risk. A miss at that distance does not just miss. It can ricochet into infrastructure. It can ignite what the defense is trying to protect. The drone kept coming. At 8:49 a.m., it struck. The impact was precise, not explosive in the cinematic sense, not a towering blast wave that flattens buildings, but catastrophic in effect. Fuel ignited instantly. Fire climbed the side of the tank and rolled outward, feeding on stored reserves. Heat expanded. Smoke thickened. Within seconds, secondary fires followed, spreading across the complex in a chain reaction driven by proximity and pressure. The strike did not destroy the base. It did not collapse structures. It did not level buildings. It did something worse. It stopped operations. Aircraft that had survived the entire engagement remained intact on the ground, but now they sat inside an airfield without fuel flow, without safe access routes, and without a functioning support perimeter. Sorties were suspended. Emergency protocols took over. Fire crews shifted from readiness to containment, from launch schedules to damage control. From a purely tactical perspective, the damage looked limited. From an operational perspective, it was total. The air defense network had done almost everything right. Missiles had launched. Drones had been intercepted. The majority of the threat had been stopped. The defenders had followed Doctrine and executed their procedures. And yet, the mission had succeeded because the objective was never to overwhelm defenses. It was to exhaust them, to force perfect systems into imperfect moments, to make every correct decision arrive a few seconds too late. As smoke rose over the coastline, command channels began reconstructing timelines, reviewing logs, assigning explanations. Systems replayed tracks. Operators searched for the exact second the picture went from clear to unstable. But the drones were already gone, and what remained was not a question of firepower, but of whether the system could trust its own view of the sky again. After action window, Crimea. By the time the fires were contained, the picture was already clear. The base was still standing. The runways were intact. Most aircraft were untouched. From a distance, it did not look like a defeat, but nothing was flying. Fuel operations were suspended indefinitely. Emergency crews controlled access zones. Commanders shifted from sortie planning to damage assessment. Airframes that survived the attack now sat idle, waiting on a support chain that no longer functioned. The system had protected the wrong thing. This operation was never designed to win a clean exchange. Ukraine did not need to defeat every radar, every launcher, or every interceptor. It only needed to push the defense into a sequence where perfect reactions produced imperfect outcomes. The air defense network followed its doctrine. The operators trusted their tools. The missiles flew when they were supposed to, and the system still failed. Because modern warfare is not decided by how many threats you stop. It is decided by what happens when one gets through and whether that single success changes the entire operational picture. Here, it did. The loss of the Su-30 shattered confidence. The fractured command response created hesitation. The hesitation created gaps. The gaps allowed a drone cheap, slow, and expendable to reach a target that mattered more than any aircraft on the ramp. Fuel is not dramatic. It does not look like victory on camera, but without it, nothing moves. Ukraine did not remove Russian air power by destruction. It removed it by interruption. That distinction matters. This is what modern strikes increasingly look like. Not overwhelming force, but pressure applied over time. Not decisive blows, but decision collapse. Systems do not fail because they are weak. They fail because they are rigid. And the most dangerous moment is not when defenses are overwhelmed, but when they are working exactly as designed. As analysts debate hardware, software, and blame, the lesson remains uncomfortable and simple. If your system cannot adapt faster than the threat can think, it does not matter how advanced it is. The drone did not win because it was invisible. It won because it arrived at the exact moment the system could no longer agree on what it was seeing. That is the real battlefield now. And if you want to keep your radar tuned for what comes next, go ahead and subscribe. We promise to warn you before the next perfect system breaks.